All right. Well, we're back on the Curated Media channel with the weekend preview. It is Friday. It is lunchtime. That means Pat and I have some suggestions for your weekend viewing.
We
Pat,
do.
how are we doing? You happy to be at the weekend?
Yes. Yep. I'm looking forward to a shortened week next week. So that'll be exciting.
Yeah. So, a couple things that we wanted to cover today. Obviously, one, we wanted to give you some recommendations. We also have a couple Thanksgiving picks of maybe something that you can watch with your family, because as we talked about last night on our show, there are so many options on streaming. Maybe we can help you to narrow it down a little bit. So, but before we do that, we also wanted to maybe comment on some of the recommendations we've been giving, because we haven't necessarily watched these shows before we recommend all of them. So just a couple, I think both Netflix shows, both revolving around the word queen. Uh, well, JB and JB is not feeling well, so he's not on the call right now. But we watched the first two episodes of The Crown last night. What a just wonderfully luxurious series. Pat, I know you haven't gotten into it yet, but I do think at some point, maybe if you have an extended time off over Christmas or something, to just forge ahead and just plow through the four seasons. I think the writing's gotten progressively better. Uh, it's one of those shows, and I think we talked about it before, where you can see where the budget's actually going, and it's going into the quality of the product, not necessarily just having an actor attached to it. And I was thinking it was very funny that they largely, aside from Olivia Colman, have gotten relative unknowns to play some of these major roles of historical characters, which is interesting because it's like when you have an everyman, you want a superstar playing them, like a major actor. But sometimes when you have a very famous person, you almost
Right.
want a
Yeah.
nobody because there's this big persona hanging over it. So I thought it was very interesting. But this season is in the 80s. We have Diana and Charles, and that whole thing going on. We have Margaret Thatcher, who's brilliantly portrayed by Gillian Anderson. So again, we recommended it last week. I would say again, it's definitely worth your time. You can jump right in, or you can go through the backlog of seasons. And Pat, you last week recommended The Queen's Gambit, which has gotten a lot of buzz on social media recently. What have you thought about it?
Yeah. I've got one episode left. So I'm excited to see how it pans out here. But yeah, it's been really for a show about chess and for a Netflix show, it's like not over long. It's super engaging and it's not over long. There haven't been any episodes where I've been like, why did the television show need to be 8 episodes long?
Right.
There's an hour of fluff in here. None of it has been that. And especially I'm especially impressed by the fact that they make the actual playing of chess, which is certainly an engaging hobby if
Right.
you're the one playing, but you wouldn't think, oh, how are you going to make watching people play chess exciting? And you know what? They have consistently found different ways of doing it each episode. That's really exciting. So, and
Is it primarily through editing devices, or just the pacing, or how are they how are they juicing those chess scenes? I'm interested.
yeah, a lot of it is like the sort of the venue that they're playing in. She starts out playing at high school gymnasium, and
Hmm.
now she's playing in Paris, France, in these fancy salons and things. So like part of it is the way that they do the audience around the chess players, and like they'll have boards showing the moves for each of the players.
Right.
Pretty interesting. And then a lot of it is Anya Taylor-Joy, who continues to really impress me in this, in everything that she's done thus far, but certainly this role, uh, taking this very sort of quiet, introspective character and doing a lot with a little. And even while she's playing chess, you see on her face and in the move, the way she is holding herself, like whether she's stressed or not, in an impressive way. So I think it's a combination of those things that makes it pretty engaging.
All right, so definitely both of our Netflix, both are available, both are past picks, and they seem to be panning out. So definitely check those out if you have a chance. But coming to this weekend, I'm going to go first through JB's picks, and I think it's one that he's mentioned in the past, but it's Rocco Schiavone, which is a PBS masterpiece series that I believe has been imported from Italy. I think so. But Schiavone is a deputy police commissioner for the state police, I believe, in Rome, and he's transferred to an alpine town. And I guess, sort of comedy kind of ensues. It's like a thriller, but it also is kind of has a lighter tone, like a lot of those PBS pieces do. I know it's another one of those international series that he really enjoys, especially if you like any of the PBS masterpiece things. They seem to have codified sort of a tone around all their stuff, that if you like one of the series, generally you like many of them. So definitely you can check that out on PBS Masterpiece. I believe you can access that through Amazon Prime, not if you subscribe to the PBS Pass on there. So that being said, that was his major pick. So Pat, why don't I throw it over to you, and you can tell us one of your two picks for this weekend.
Yeah, so my first pick is a movie that I actually have already seen. I saw it at the New York Film Festival, the virtual New York Film Festival that occurred this year. And it's from Steve McQueen, who's directed Widows and Shame and 12 Years a Slave. And he's doing a anthology. I think of it as an anthology movie series.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at IMDb right now, and it is describing it as an anthology television series. So, kind of like Twin Peaks: The Return, is it a movie? Is it television? We're gonna have that conversation
Right.
again. But he made 5 movies, short, relatively short, sub 2-hour movies, for the BBC and Amazon Prime about the experience of the West Indian community in London in the 70s and the 80s, which is, drawing on his own background and his own experiences, as well as like historical events from Britain at the time. And the first one that they're releasing them one per week over the next 5 weeks. And the first one is called Mangrove, and it's pretty much a courtroom drama, probably a nice compliment to the trial, the Chicago 7, following the real drama of the Mangrove Nine, who were, basically the victims of police brutality and over policing in Britain in the 70s in London. And it stars Sean Parks as Frank Critchlow, and Letitia Wright, who many viewers probably know as Princess Shuri from the Black Panther. She plays an activist and lawyer here, Althea Jones. And it's great. It's a really compact, engaging courtroom drama. I've seen 3 pieces of this small axe anthology. I enjoyed all of them, but this one I think was the best all around experience of the 3 that I saw in terms of it being a full movie. And really great stuff. Really, different flavor of courtroom drama, being British, but interesting, timely piece of work. And that's
Very
on
good.
Amazon Prime.
Yep. And Steve McQueen, like Pat said, major director. I was
Yeah.
just thinking about it because last night we spoke, and if you haven't checked that out, we did a talk of the town last night going over some industry news. Definitely check that out if you haven't done that already. But we were talking about sort of not having a set format, and I think I mentioned maybe it was even off air. I was talking about Horace and Pete, but then afterwards, I saw this. I looked up the preview for this because I knew this was going to be one of your picks for today. And then I remembered that Matt Weiner, the creator of Mad Men, also had a series or an anthology series on Amazon Prime that also had this run times anywhere from an hour to like an hour and a half, called Modern Love. And those series, the whatever you want to call them, that was much less acclaimed. Most of those were panned. There were a couple of good ones, but maybe this is just an approach that they're just giving creators some type of runway or guarantee that they can get all their stuff seen if they produce sort of a bundle of content for them. So I think it is a very interesting approach. All right, so my first pick was a film that I think the first I heard about it was at Sundance. I'm not sure what subsequent festivals it went to, but there is a film that's releasing, is available any place where you can rent or buy films, and it's called The Nest, directed by T. Sean Durkin. Metascore right now is sitting at 76. Durkin, I think his last movie that he directed was Martha May Marlene. It was like
Yeah.
Elizabeth Olsen's breakout film,
Yep.
sort of about her. She's sort of involved in a cult and sort
Cult
of what,
thing.
yeah. So he's returning, and it's this film stars Jude Law and Carrie Coon, and Carrie Coon I think is incredible, great actress, probably most well known from David Fincher's Gone Girl. She plays Nick's sister, but if you like sort of more prestige TV, you might know her from her incredible work over 3 seasons on The Leftovers, which is another show that at some point I'll have to recommend as a wild card because I still think that's some of the best TV. Um, but I guess it's about this guy. The husband is a entrepreneur and commodities broker, and him and his wife moved to some type of English countryside estate, and then there's something where the marriage starts to unravel. Um, I don't know. I just kind of trust the talent involved in this one. I don't know too much about it. I honestly haven't even watched the preview. It's just two actors that I think are doing really good work right now, and a director who I'm sure has an interesting take on the subject matter. So if you're interested in that, you will have to seek it out. You will have to pay the $3 or $5.99, whatever it is, to rent it at the very least. And it's called The Nest, and it's available wide now. Pat, what's your number 2 pick?
Yeah, my I'm excited. I'm gonna have to check that one out. I love Jude Law. So
Mm,
um my second pick though is another television actually, or no, well, because the first one's TV,
yeah.
whether it's television or not, but this is a television series for sure. Co-production between the BBC and HBO. It's the second season of His Dark Materials, which premiered on this past Monday. And I loved these books as a child, as a young person, and I wasn't really sold on. To be honest with you, I watched maybe half the first season, wasn't really sold on it. Uh, but then I revisited the this. I watched the second season opener and was able to follow along with it because I know the plot from the book and was much more impressed this time. I think it's in more fantastical territory now than the first season, and I think they're hitting all the right beats and tone, and the production design is working more for me than it did the first season. Um, so yeah, highly recommend that. You probably, if you haven't watched the first season, you probably do want to watch that before,
Mhm.
or have read the books before you watch the second season. But I'm cautiously optimistic on this one.
And it has some fairly heavy hitters in terms of its
It
cast, right?
does. Yeah, it's got
Lin Manuel.
yeah, that's the one piece of casting that I'm really not jazzed up about, to be honest. I love
Yeah,
him.
right. But
No,
yeah,
man's a genius. But they cast him as this gruff Texan cowboy type. And in the movie version, which is very bad, they cast Sam Elliott. And when I read the
wow.
book, even as a child, like if you were gonna, mentally picture this guy, you'd picture Sam Elliott
Yep,
because the
yep.
man's a cowboy. And so, pitch perfect casting. You should have just cast Sam Elliott again. I love Lin Manuel Miranda, but like he just
It's a little bit of a tough sell. He's got a little
it's a
bit of a
real tough.
softer. He's got a
Yeah,
softer side, and there's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, I agree. Sometimes actors do have like there's a certain range, and just outside of it, it just seems uncomfortable or unrealistic, and it's not a discredit to the actor. It's just it is what it is,
yeah.
right? But yeah, I've noticed that. I did not watch the first season. I know that you were. I remember when you were first watching it, and you were recommending at least to give it a try. So I might do that at some point, maybe over the holidays. Just jump in and try to catch up as quickly as I can. For me, I kind of cheated on my second pick because, as you know, we usually do two films that are available on TCM and subsequently will probably be available on the TCM app, or you could record on TCM. So I picked a film to also not only that is on TCM, but another film that I would put in the small number of films that fits inside of the Thanksgiving canon. Thanksgiving canon. I think maybe there's Charlie Brown. There's probably some like Will Ferrell comedy or something revolving around Thanksgiving, but not that I can remember off the top of my head. But my favorite Thanksgiving centric movie is Hannah and Her Sisters. It's a Woody Allen film from 1986. It is playing this weekend on TCM on Sunday. at 6 p.m. Or of course you can rent it on any of the major platforms, Amazon, YouTube, what have you. So if you want more detail on sort of the plot of it, it's kind of convoluted, but it involves around Hannah, who's played by Mia Farrow, and her three sisters, or her two sisters,
Surprise.
which is pretty much what it is. But it's basically about these little fragments and sort of elliptical scenes of relationships and love affairs and things that happen and don't happen. And there's a great plot line in there about Woody Allen, who's a television producer in the film, who's loosely connected to the family. And he has a crisis of faith because he has a health scare, and then goes in search of sort of existential meaning of life through all these means. He goes to the Catholic Church. He looks at the Krishnas. So there's like this very funny, light thing. And then there's this great drama. And they use for each one of the plot lines has its own sort of musical motifs, like a leitmotif, everything from Bach to Rodgers and Hart. It's just a really, there's a lot of drama going on, but it's a really warm movie. And I just, every time I watch it, I just absolutely adore it. I cannot recommend it enough. It's not necessarily one that you sit down and watch with your entire family, because there's a lot of there's no real profanity, but there's just like a lot of love affairs and just stuff. I always just enjoy watching it myself. So if you're in that same mindset, if you like Woody Allen, I think this is best piece of writing, directing overall. So check it out, Hannah and Her Sisters, again on TCM, 6 p.m. on Sunday, or available to rent anywhere that you possibly could think of. So let's pivot. So we talked about TCM on that pick, and let's talk about the two picks for this weekend. One that I know that Pat is very fond of is The Thin Man, which is playing at 12 p.m. on Sunday. So right at noon on Sunday, you can tune in. Director W.S. Van Dyke, Metascore 686. So Pat, tell the people why they should watch The Thin Man.
The Thin Man is great. It is the story of a happily married drunk couple that get involved in all sorts of fun and exciting. And it's a whole series. This is the first one.
Mm-hmm.
But they just through the course of their lives get involved in a succession of crimes and murder mysteries and things. She is independently wealthy. She's an heiress. He was a police detective until he married her. And they're mostly just trying to enjoy their lives, and they keep getting stuck in these murder mystery situations. They have an adorable dog, and
Astra, right? Is it Astra?
Astra, yeah. It's like a little terrier dog. Asta.
Sorry.
And he has his own little sub adventures. Oftentimes, in the second movie, there's a great little subplot for him. But yeah, it's great. They crack jokes. They drink a lot. Especially the first couple ones were made before the production code really took effect, and so they could get some sort of saucy jokes in there. Great stuff. Just super lighthearted, fun.
Right, and it's lensed by one of the creators of the look of film noir, which is Jimmy Wong Howe.
I didn't know that.
I'm pretty sure the first one is. I don't believe any of the other subsequent ones are. But the on-screen chemistry between Myrna Loy and William Powell is. They put them together a whole bunch of times. Obviously, they created a series out of this, but it's one of those all-time duos on-screen chemistry. It's Hepburn and Tracy, Bogey and Bacall. I mean, more modern equivalents. I'm trying to think. I guess you sort of have Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan. You have Woody Allen and Diane Keaton, but they're like one of the original Rat-a-tat. It's just they're so believable and so funny and so comfortable. Yeah. It's such a fun movie to watch. And I think you've said it before, but I'm just really shocked that they haven't tried to reboot something like this in a context.
You would have to change very little. I mean, exactly. You'd honestly be better off keeping it period appropriate, but I would love to see more of these movies. Yeah, I don't know who could quite match the chemistry, but you can figure it out. What about Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone?
They would be perfect. Them. You're right. You're absolutely right. I will say the two attempts that recently seem to be in the same tone, more playful, are obviously Knives Out, which I really enjoy every time I watch it.
Yep.
And then Actually, it wasn't great, but I think they're making a second one. Was the movie that's simply called Murder Mystery, was made for Netflix with Jennifer
Oh,
Aniston and Adam
yep.
Sandler. Not nearly as complicated or nuanced, but the premise was basically the same, that this detective and his wife end up involved in some really highfalutin murder mystery on a boat. And I think they are making a second one. So again, that's The Thin Man, playing at noon on Sunday. For more details, look in the video description. You can go to the TCM page and look at it. Should be available on the app afterwards. So the second one is actually, again, this week is on right after it. So if you tune in at noon on Sunday, you should get a nice double feature. The second one, it was one of the duos that we just mentioned, and their first movie together was Woman of the Year. It's Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy. Woman of the Year, 1942, directed by George Stevens. Basically, it's really interesting. It's sort of an examination of gender roles of the time, because you have Spencer Tracy plays a sports writer who ends up falling head over heels for this very sort of, again, I'm going to use the word highfalutin, but like this very sophisticated political columnist writer for the same newspaper. They have a war of the words at the beginning through the paper, and then they meet each other and it becomes a meet cute, and they sort of fall for each other, and you can see how out of place each one of them is in the other's world, which is very funny. There's a scene in a baseball game. There's a scene at a dinner party where Spencer Tracy can't speak the language of anybody else. There's a little bit of stuff that's definitely dated in the second scene that I talked about, but essentially the whole film sort of plays out with sort of they're poking and prodding at who wears the pants and who actually has the upper hands, and a certain sense of inferiority that I think the male character feels with a woman who's so successful, an insecurity that I think translates through to the modern day. The ending is a little bit strange. I love the dynamic between the two of them. And obviously they would go on to collaborate in many more movies after this. So if you haven't seen it, again, Pat loves George Stevens. I think he's a great director. And this is on at 1:45, so right after The Thin Man. If you want to sort of see another couples comedy, definitely worth your while to take a look at this. So,
Yeah. Was that the last comedy he made before the war, right?
Must be, right?
Yeah, I mean, 42.
Let's you know what? I'll look that up while you talk about. So we talked about Thanksgiving picks that we wanted to do. So something sort of family friendly. I know one of my great pleasures. We have a fairly small family circle, but we like to Thanksgiving night. Everybody just sort of gathers around the TV, and generally we throw on something that's a fairly classical movie or something that we can all relate to. And I thought, a lot of people are looking for something that they can safely put on with their whole family at night. Even if people end up flipping through their phones and stuff and doing other things, it's nice to have sort of everybody in one room, maybe watching the same thing for, especially this year, if everybody can be together. So, Pat, what was your pick?
My pick is Wes Anderson's The Fantastic Mr. Fox, just stop motion animated film that's available on Disney Plus. It might be on a couple other streaming platforms. I know some of Anderson's other work is on Prime and or Netflix. So, but it's on Disney Plus, and it's certainly available to rent from those other platforms, if not. And it's just delight. I mean, it's about I think it's an hour and 40 minutes.
Yep.
It's delightful. Stars the voices of George Clooney, Meryl Streep, Jason Schwartzman, Michael Gambon, all the typical Anderson players, or Bill Murray, all the Anderson typical players are there. But it's just his aesthetic to the max, like the wonderful handmade nature of everything that he does is really on display here. And it's a delightful fall, like it's set during the fall. Orange and yellow are definitely the two predominant colors in the film. And it's a great family message, great story about community coming together, and a family coming together to steal some chickens, because they're foxes. So
it is. It's great.
Yeah, highly recommend that. Really any time of year, but certainly fall is. I think it's one of his most accessible films, and it's the perfect film for this time of year.
Yeah, that's a great pick. Again, available on Disney Plus. Fantastic Mr. Fox. That's a great one to throw on. The whole family will love it. A lot of great craftsmanship. Speaking of great craftsmanship, my picks are kind of vague, but I think you can kind of make them work. I'm not sure. You can probably find a couple of them on streaming services, but you might have to go out and rent one or two of them. I thought sort of like the old line MGM musicals are kind of fun to throw on with the whole family because if you have grandparents, they certainly can relate to it because many of them probably saw some of these films in theaters. Younger generation, first time getting exposed to it. The music is fun, especially for younger kids. And then if you're just an adult and you appreciate art and craftsmanship, I think either one of An American in Paris or Singing in the Rain, one of my top 5 movies of all time, definitely makes sense to share with your family. Fairly warm movies, beautifully shot and colorful movies, just like the Fantastic Mr. Fox. And I think that quality is just it exudes from them. If you're looking for something a little less musical, your family just is not into that. I totally understand. Believe me, we have friends that we talk to that are
Yeah,
hardline, no musical people. And I'm like, I
don't
can't believe it.
understand that.
It's like the most pure form of cinema, but
Yeah. Why would you
I,
deny yourself the joy of movie musicals? I
I
mean,
don't know.
I don't love musicals today, and I think
Yeah.
that they're mishandled and uh, maybe give people a bad rap. But I mean, those classic ones, I mean, any of what you just mentioned are pure joy.
Yeah, they are. You can see again just the production value is just so incredible, and the amount of expressiveness in them is just really incredible. But my alternate picks is if you don't like those, I still think Mid-Century is super safe to watch with your family. Like so, I would go with Hitchcock movies, particularly. Rear Window is actually showing on Thanksgiving Day on TCM. If you guys would care to watch that, that's on at 8 p.m. If you think about that. Also, all the Hitchcock movies are available on Peacock, which you can sign up for free. There will be commercials during the movie, or you can upgrade the package right away or get a free trial for a week, and you can watch all of Hitchcock's library. I would say Rear Window and Vertigo would probably be the ones that I would want to watch with my family. They're a little bit
Mm.
more plotted. I think North by Northwest is a little too convoluted if you're not paying attention to have
Oh,
any.
really?
Yeah, I just think
I
there's so many plot points in that movie that I still don't fully understand what happens.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. I guess I feel different. I feel like I'd swap North by Northwest for Vertigo. I mean, Vertigo is undeniably great and easier to follow, but
Hmm.
it's also like pretty slow and he's doing a
That's true.
lot there. Um,
North by
I don't
North,
know.
you're right. North by Northwest does string from one scene to another very quickly, and there are a couple incredibly dynamic scenes. The crop duster scenes, the stuff on the train, uh,
Yep.
the wonderful Mount Rushmore scene at the end, which
Yeah.
is doesn't quite hold up super well, but it works. So I guess let's extend it to those three. So
And you can't
any
go wrong. So
yeah. So if you look up any of Hitchcock's library, particularly that period right there in the 50s was just prime time. I think Hitchcock and Sinatra were kind of on top of the world in the 50s. Because Sinatra was at Capitol and Hitchcock was making these incredible movies one after another that would widely be acclaimed as some of the first quote unquote auteur cinema when the French New Wave came around and sort of codified what an auteur was. So definitely some really cool stuff. So we will be back this coming week, probably on Fridays for a weekend preview,
yeah.
and hopefully we can check in and see how some of the things that we watched were, and give you guys some more guidance. But until then, we hope you have a wonderfully happy Thanksgiving to you and all of yours. Stay safe, and we will see you in the movies. Bye.